Hello, welcome to this video about the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, a collection about teachings and practices for spiritual awakening. Today we will see a series of 3 verses about icchā in Sanskrit, or will or desire. First is verse 96. Jhagitīcchāṃ samutpannām avalokya śamaṃ nayet yata eva samudbhūtā tatas tatraiva līyate. Icchā is often translated as will, but in fact here it can mean any motion of the soul, any emotion, any movement. Jhagiti, when suddenly, icchāyām, a desire, an emotion as well. Samutpannām, has arisen, has started to move. Avalokya, putting one's attention on it, looking at it. Nayet, one should bring it, accompany it. śamaṃ, to peace, Yata, from there itself. Samudbhūtā, where it has arisen. Tathābhūtas, then tatraiva, there itself. Līyate, it dissolves away, it disappears. Exactly from where it appeared, there it will dissolve. So, I am there, suddenly I have a desire to get up, to move, to go outside. Right there, I put my attention on that will, on that desire. And instead of doing what I desire, instead of continuing that desire up to the stage where it transforms into physical action, getting up and moving outside, etc., I remain with the desire. I just look at it and I bring it back right where it started, as if I had a button on a video to slow it down and to bring it back to the point where it arose. In order to have the experience of desire, of will, of emotion, not in its objective physical manifestations, like physical movement of the body, but to have an experience of desire right at its start, like the Big Bang of desire, going back to the very instant, to the very moment when the desire, when the movement, any subjective movement, any conscious movement starts, as if tracing back the movement of the galaxies to their very start, to the Big Bang, to the very first instant, to the moment where all started, the very first inflation, the very first explosion, the very first expansion. Why? Because at that moment I can feel that I am one with all the possible outcomes of that movement, of that action, of that desire, of that will, of that emotion. At the start, all is possible, because I am universal consciousness, but I have freely self-contracted. So now, even though I am universal consciousness, having all powers, I don't feel that, it seems. It seems that for me, desire is rather feeling the lack of something. I want to move, and maybe I cannot. I can do this, and I cannot do that. I have limited powers to do this and not to do that, to know this and not to know that. I prefer this and I hate that. I would prefer to flee than to fight. I would prefer to say yes than no, and no to this rather than yes. I have many preferences and therefore many limitations, and I feel that I'm separated from what I desire. And sometimes I am confronted with what I desire not. So desire, it seems, is just pain, the pain of not having what I want and of having what I do not want. But if I come back to the very first instant of desire, then there, at that point, in that very moment, I can feel directly, without having to think anything, to imagine anything, to visualize anything, to impose anything. I can feel directly, like I feel now that I am thirsty or hungry. I can feel directly that I am one with all objects, with all worlds, with all effects. For in that very first instant of desire, desire is not yet separated from its aim, from its goal. It's just like in perception. In the very first instant of perception, it is pure awareness, not separated from any of its content. It's omniscient, it's all-knowing. All known objects are still possible and still one with the subject. But then it becomes fragmented, separate. And it is the same for desire. It is the same for emotion. At the very first instant, my desire, the desire that I am, is one with all the possible objects of desire. So the goal of that practice is that to plunge back into desire at its very source and in the Big Bang of desire, when all is still one. That's the practice here. And it is a very powerful practice, and it is a practice very unique to Tantric Yoga. This is the most unique practice of Tantric Yoga. I think this is really the heart of it, what is proper to it, what it is the only tradition to offer. Avalokya antarmukhadvena vimrishya, turning inward. Icchāyām putrādiyeshanam, like the desire for a son, for example, which is a big obsession for Indian men. Idam misyāt. Let me have a son now. Itivam prakaram eshanam samutpannām, when such a desire is arisen, amurtada pichin matrat, that desire arises from pure consciousness, chinmatrat, even though it is formless, amurtadapi. Shigram shantim prapayet. One should bring it quickly, without delay, that is, without waiting that it becomes an objective desire, not an ordinary desire with its full display. Having seen that desire arisen from the agitation of the created by Maya, by the illusion of forgetfulness of one's true nature, of one's fullness. And there, the commentator quotes a very important, very beautiful verse from the Spamnakarika, the poem on vibration. Ekachinta prasaktasya. For one who is into one thought, into one object, into one task, fully focused, concentrated, suddenly another thought arises, another perception. For instance, a door is slamming. I am completely focused, and suddenly, in that very moment, that what arises there, the pure startled awareness, amazed awareness, that is it. That is pure awareness. And that is true so of the end of desire, at the moment I get what I want. Because then that desire, that thought, that emotion, that movement goes back like a wave into the ocean, into pure awareness. So I can also put my awareness at the end of any movement. And as it says elsewhere in that Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, yatra mano yati tena tat parityajya, etc. So every time a thought arises, it goes down at the same time, in fact, like a drawing on water. So if you put your attention, instead of putting it on the arising of thoughts, if you put it on the dissolving away of thoughts, instant after instant, you get a feeling of growing, deepening relaxation. And there you recognize yourself as pure awareness, free of the movements of thoughts, and as it were messaged by those movements, as if space was messaged. Yeah, ekachinta prasaktasya yataha syada parodayah unmeshaha satuvigyeyaha swayam tamupalakshayet tarangaiva to yeshu budbuddha iva sagare, like the little blobs of the sea, in the sea water. 97. Yadā mamecchā notpannā jñānaṃ vā tadāsmi vai tattvato'haṃ tathābhūtas tallīnas tanmanā bhavet. Yada, when mamecchā, my desire, a desire of me, notpannā, is not has not arisen, when I have no desire, jñānaṃ vā, or no cognition, no perception, no thought of anything, tadāsmi vai, in truth, verily, who am I then? Who am I then? When I have no desire, when I have no thought, who am I then? So you may ask, when do I have no thought? When do I have no desire? Well, it's very simple. Between two desires, between two thoughts, there are no desires, no thoughts. That's why you can say, now I have a desire of having a coffee. Now I have a desire to go out. Now I see that pot of coffee. Now I see the house. Now I hear the truck. Because before you were not hearing, because there was no perception. So, jñānaṃ iti kriyayaha upalakshanam. So this is for all activities as well, because in Kashmir Shaivism, cognition stands for actions as well, bodily actions. So cognition is inner action, and action is outer cognition. But they are all the same movement, different stages of the same movement. Tattvato'haṃ tathābhūtas. In truth, I am such, I have never any thought. The truth of me is what is between two thoughts, between two desires. Tallīnas, the one who dissolves in that, tanmanā bhavet, his attention becomes that, his mind becomes that, his mind is dissolved away and becomes pure awareness, the pure awareness that is given in plain view between two thoughts, between two desires. So here is the practice of, again, the interval between two thoughts, two actions, two breaths, two desires, and so on. It is the state of the zero state. In the previous verse, it was the one state, the first instant state, the Shakti tattva. Now it's the Shiva tattva. This is what Abhinavagupta explains in an important line of his Malni Vijayavartikam. But anyway. And then there is verse 98, always still on icchā, desire. icchāyām athavā, jñāne jāte, chittam niveshayet. Atma buddhiya nanyatchetaha, tatas tattvarthadarshanaṃ. Athavā, or else. Icchāyām, when a desire, icchāyām, when a desire, athavā, or jñāne, a cognition, a perception, a thought, jāte is born, has appeared, chittam niveshayet, one should fix one's mind, but rather one's attention on it. One should fix one's attention on it. Atma buddhi ananyatchetaha, for one whose attention, again chetas, for one whose attention is on nothing else, Atma buddhi, the intellect, on the self, again the attention fixed on the self, on oneself. Tataha, then, tattvarta darshanam, there is the vision of the truth of being, the vision of reality. So one should fix, he says in the commentary, one should fix one's on nothing else but the buddhi, the understanding, atma, that this is the self. Atma eva etat, iti buddhya chittam nikshipet. One should fix one's attention on that understanding, on that intellection, on that understanding, on that insight, that this is verily the self. Tena eva, but that itself, paramartha jñānaṃ bhavet, the knowledge, ultimate, the knowledge of the supreme ultimate truth will come. Ayam atma brahma, and he quotes the Upanishad. Okay, so here he does not, again, he does not really explain, because he says that fixating one's attention on a thought or on a reasoned desire is like fixing one's attention on the self. But how can a thought or desire be the self? When there is no desire, no perception, no thought, I understand that can be the self, because the self is no thought, no desire, nothing, not this, not that. But how can a desire be the self? Well, he does not explain, but it relates to what I said before, that in Kashmir Shaivism, in Tantric Yoga, in Tantric philosophy, the absolute is desire. Desire is no accident. It is not agantuka. It is not accidental. It is the swarupa. It is the very own form, the very own essence of the absolute. It is the absolute. As Abhinavagupta says, consciousness is like an ocean, but an ocean is never without waves. It's always vibrating. It's always moving. That's a key point of Tantric Yoga. The absolute consciousness, awareness, universal consciousness is always moving, is always on the move. Not necessarily a gross movement, but always at least a subtle movement. Consciousness is movement. Consciousness is vibrating. Consciousness is vibration. Consciousness is movement. Not movement like going from point A to a point B, not transitive movement, not altering, not becoming something else, but a movement from oneself to oneself, like an inner emotion, like when you have an emotion. You're not moving somewhere in space, you're not becoming someone else, you're remaining the same, but it is not inert. It is not like a stone, it is moving. And this is another key point proper to Tantric Yoga. That's all for today. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.